Today, we have a doubleheader for you as we explore the quarterback and tight end prospects for the NFL Draft in our deep dive series. Let's go.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm Kesha.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sounds Gouda. My name is Jordan Olson, and my co-host and best friend over here is Rob Ralph, the man, the myth, the legend. But thank you, everybody, for being here. Whether it's your first time joining us or if you're a dedicated follower, somebody who's commenting and interacting with us regularly on YouTube or one of our other platforms, we really appreciate it. But we're excited to be talking Packers football again with you all. And we have new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So as we said in our intro, this is part of our positional deep dive series. Check out our other deep dive episodes. We've done most positions at this point in time, including, corner, wide receiver, edge, D tackle, offensive tackle, and linebacker. We are still trying to get to 500 subs before the draft. And if we do that, we're going to share this positional, deep dive resource with our community. So please help us out, and we'll return the favor by sharing this cool tool that we've been working on. And just a reminder that if you're going to be at the draft, you want to meet up, I'm going to be there. I'm still got some things I'm planning out, but we're going to get some information out on our YouTube channel under the post section and on our X accounts for just a fun meetup. We'll be celebrating our 1 year of getting this podcast started. Actually, it'll be our birthday on draft weekend, and we just love to get together with a few of you, have a drink, discuss some Packers ball, and go from there. So with that being said, let's talk about where the Packers currently stand. Today, like we said, we're doing a doubleheader. We're going to do the tight ends, and we're going to talk about quarterbacks. So you all really know this, but where the Packers stand with those two positions on their roster. We have a great and upcoming tight end and Tucker Kraft. We've got kind of a wild card super athlete in Luke Musgrave. A great blocker in Ben Sims, and Messiah Swinson as somebody who kind of rounds out that room right now. For quarterback, we obviously have Jordan Love, our quarterback of the future. Let's hope that he can stay healthy and take another step in 2025. Malik Willis and Sean Clifford. So we're in pretty good shape on our QB room, but Malik Willis is going to be a free agent, or maybe we'll get traded this coming season or off season. So we might need some depth there to have our backup quarterback of the future. Rob, why don't you share a little bit about our big board and our threshold specifically for tight end? We'll do that group first, and then we will come back and we will hit the quarterback group after that.
Yeah, so some of the tiers that we're going to be working on for this, and there's not too many, but a white or an absolute incomplete, a complete incomplete profile. Red is too many flags. Orange is multiple concerns or deficiencies. Gold is one concern, but a great prospect for the Packers. And then obviously green is 100 Packers type all day. So just know that the Packers usually do value a higher RAS score with their first and second round picks. And with the tight ends, there's a little bit of some difficulties here because there is not a lot of known thresholds, or at least for what we could find. But the couple that we were able to pick up on is a 4.7 40-yard dash and a 6.5 RAS score. So other than that, there wasn't a lot to know as far as the tight end room goes. And with that, we can dive down into starting with the red tier. So first up in the red tier, Gunnar Helm out of Texas. Good yards after catch, good in pass pro, but a poor run blocker. Projected around round 4. Next in our red tier, Jake Bringenstool out of Clemson, a bad RAS score and a bad 40 time, a 6.22 RAS score, 4.75 40 time. Caden Priscorn out of Ole Miss, projected around round 6. He's very old, 25 years old, a bad RAS score and a 40 time of 5.45 and 4.77 for the 40 time. Next up in the red tier, Maliki Matavio out of UCLA. Either round 7 or a UDFA, but was a Senior Bowl invite. He has a bad RES score, 6.58, and a 40 time of 4.48. And then last up here in our red tier, but Brant Kewith. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Out of Utah, but he is very old, 25 years old, 6'2", 236 pounds. So that is what rounds out our red tier. And I'm going to jump it over to Jordan to give you some more context and jump it over to our orange tier.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys are bad blockers that we put out there. If the Packers are going to draft a tight end this year, we've got some great down the field receiving threats, but we're clearly going to need somebody who brings something in the blocking game, whether that's as an inline blocker or somebody that is really good out in space and has the ability to pick up linebackers and things like that and be really physical. So that's why a lot of those guys ended up on the red tier list as well, with the lack of information we have, whether it's testing or thresholds. But we know we're looking for a blocker. So only 2 guys on our orange tier again. So maybe guys that have 1 or 2 things that we have some concern about, but wouldn't be totally surprised if they were Packers. Jackson Hawes from Georgia Tech. He's 6'4", 253. He's really slow, though. He is a plus blocker, which I think the Packers would be interested in. He's probably going to be a 5th or 6th round prospect, but I don't think you're going to get anything from him in the receiving game. He didn't have hardly any production in his couple seasons starting for Georgia Tech. He's like not a receiving threat at all. So I know we'd love to have a blocker, but if he can't get down the field and catch the ball, even at the college level, not going to happen at the NFL level. So we'll see.
Next up, and the last one in our orange tier, projected around 7, or a UDFA, Gavin Bartholomew out of Pitt. Got his height here at 6'4", 246 pounds, ran a 40 time of 4.71. But other than that, we did not find a lot of pros or cons.
He's a Senior Bowl guy. I mean, anybody that went to the Senior Bowl, I'm going to give the Packers a chance at giving a look at, as long as they meet their height and weight thresholds. So I did see Gavin play in person against Western Michigan, and I will say he was dominant in that game that I went to. He's a very big individual. I think he has the ability to be a red zone threat. He looked slower than his 4.71 time in real life. He didn't really seem like he was getting open in space due to his speed. He reminds me a lot of a poor man's Pat Fryermuth. So if they can kind of get something out of him in the blocking game, he might be a great UDFA pickup for the Packers. Players that are in our gold tier that we might draft, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to just skip over Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland. I think the Packers would be interested in those players, but I don't believe that they're going to take either of those guys, because they're going to go in the first round or very early on day 2. And with Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave there, I don't think it's worth much of a discussion. Also, Colson Loveland did not really test at all, and they're not going to take a guy early that doesn't have a complete profile. So, Rob, what do we know about Elijah Arroyo?
Yeah, so first up, gold tier, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, projected around 2, was a Senior Bowl invite, 6'5", 250 pounds, so good height, good weight. We do not have a RAS or a 40 time. Some pros for him, but his athleticism shows up on tape, and especially at the Senior Bowl, and only had 1 drop and 50 targets in 2024. So we know that the Packers probably love that. Some cons, there's still a little bit of some incomplete profile, terrible contested catch rate, some false start issues, only 1 season as a starter, and also not projected to be a good blocker at the next level. Obviously, that's something that the Packers want to be able to have with the current tight end room that they have. So we got Elijah Arroyo.
I'd imagine he gamified things a little bit and not doing his testing because of the buzz he got at the Senior Bowl. He probably moved himself from a 3rd round prospect into a 2nd round prospect, and he's like, I'm just not going to hurt that draft stock by doing any testing. So I think you got to take that for what it's worth if you're the Packers, though, too, because if you're afraid to do testing, I mean, that's going to show up at some point in time. Terrence Ferguson, 22-year-old prospect, 6'5", 247, so a good long frame, probably could add a couple more pounds. You know, I'd like to see a guy that's 6'5", probably be at least 250, 255 at that next level. But he's got the frame to fill that out. He's got good top end speed. Had a 4.6 40 time. Overall, a good RAS score with the testing we have, 9.31. You know, he has the frame to be a good blocker, but did not show that at times in college. He also needs to attack the ball. I don't think that he really has a history of high pointing things and going and winning the ball. He's probably used to winning with his size, but now that he's getting to the next level, you're certainly going to have more athletic players contesting for that ball, and that might be a concern. Was also a Senior Bowl guy, so somebody, I think, if he fell to day 4, or sorry, I keep doing that. If he fell to round 4 on day 3, they might really like Terrence Ferguson from Oregon.
Yep. So next up in our gold tier, projected around round 5, Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. Pretty young, 22 years old, 6'5", 258 pounds, 7.62 RES score, and a 4.74 40 time. Good in contested catch situations, but he doesn't have a lot of twitch, and definitely does not have top end speed. So a little bit of a comp for him, but on the Richard Rodgers mold for Mitchell Evans.
Which, if you gave me Richard Rodgers in like the 6th round as somebody who could block, and I mean, we all remember Richard Rodgers. I don't know. Rob and I were joking about this. I don't know how he ended up with that Hail Mary. Aaron Rodgers and that offensive line fought a lot of time to get him down the field for that Hail Mary. But a big-bodied guy and a great play in Packers history. Thomas Fadone II from Nebraska. Good size, 6'5", 243. So again, could add some weight to that frame. 9.37 RAS score. Has a low drop rate. Is an average run blocker, so hopefully they could coach him up to being a better run blocker. One knock on him, though, is that he didn't start until 2023, so I don't really know what his journey was till starting, if he was roadblocked at Nebraska, but I don't really remember any really great Nebraska tight ends coming out in the last few years either. But he was a Senior Bowl guy and a guy the Packers could take later on day 3.
Yeah, so next up and our last one, as far as our gold tier goes, Luke Lackey out of Iowa, 23 and a half years old, 6'5", 251 pounds, has an 8.69 score, does have good size and can move people. He does have good size for the NFL. He has some run blocking, quote unquote, nastiness to him. Catch percentages were very high in the last few years he started, but he does struggle to separate and sometimes can get pushed around in the run game versus some bigger defensive ends. So, but if you're getting Luke Lackey here, the 7th or a UDFA, there's a lot to like for him for what he could do and what the Packers need.
Maybe a great priority free agent for me as a Green Bay Packer. But all right. Let's get into our green tier players we think are realistic for the Packers, whether that's finally by, where we might take them in the draft or the profile that they have. But Mason Taylor from LSU, he's a really young prospect. He's not even 21 years old yet, 6'5", 251. He's great, got great big long arms and frame. He can play an inline and the slot, and he's shown that in college. Probably needs to add another 5 or 10 pounds to his frame to be an outstanding inline blocker at the next level. So that's kind of a con. And yeah, he's got a little bit of a history of not really being able to separate versus single coverage, but he was a Senior Bowl guy. Somebody, if they are looking to be in that blocking mold, have inline versatility, and go in round 3 or round 4, Mason Taylor is probably the range where you start to look for the Packers to take a tight end in this draft.
Next up in our green tier, and somebody we have mocked and talked about pretty consistently, and I think both Jordan and I are pretty big fans, Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green State University, the Mid-American Conference. He was a Senior Bowl invite. He's projected around round 4, maybe round 5. Very, very, very young, only 20 and a half years old, 6'3", 241 pounds. His RAS score is 7.66 and his 40 time 4.71. So what are some things that we like about him? He's a plus blocker. I wouldn't say that he's a great blocker. He is a natural pass catcher, that is for sure. He does have a real good feel for open space, and he has very, very good playmaker mentality. Very strong hands too. Not a lot of drops for him. Some cons, he's probably more of an H back, but he's a competent blocker for his size. Again, too, like I was alluding to, he's not a great your typical inline, but he can definitely put a lot of good effort into his blocking, which is what I think you would want out of somebody like this that you can use as a chess piece in Matt LaFleur's system, but does have some lateral stiffness too as well. But again, I will die on this hill and say that if we got Harold Fannin Jr. in the 4th or 5th round, I think he could do a lot within Matt LaFleur's system, and it would be fun to incorporate him.
I'd honestly be surprised if he fell to the 4th or 5th round, but if we got him there, that would be tremendous value. I think he's got the potential to go late 3rd.
Does the 3rd feel too rich for you for him?
I mean, the 3rd felt too rich for me for Josiah DeGuara, but and Amari Rogers.
Good point.
But I guess Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst have a history of late 3rd kind of Tyron Hopper overdrafting a player that they really like, that they see something in. So that's why I'm like, I could see the Packers doing it in the 3rd, but would love it in the 4th or beyond. So Benjamin Eurosek, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not, but he's a prospect from Georgia. 6'4", 245, very competitive, has few drops in his career, and he is a very strong and competent blocker. He could add some more mass to really cement himself as an inline player. He's had very low receiving production the last 2 years. Probably with Benjamin, you're looking at a guy who is a blocker, high-end blocker, but a little bit lower production in the receiving game. 5th or 6th round, I like that if that's what you really feel like you have to add to this team without having a really good blocker.
Next up in our green tier, Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech, projected around round 6, 23 and a half years old, 6'3", 260 pounds, 9.23 RAS score, and just average 40 time, 4.74. I think that alludes to what he brings that would be very intriguing for the Packers, and somebody that both Jordan and I think would be a great fit, especially down here on day 3. But great blocker, excellent blocker, I should say, and great production in the last 3 years. I think out of everybody on this list, and I don't know this as complete factual, but he's got to be one of the best blockers out there, at least from what I can see on tape.
Yeah, I mean, like him and another late guy here that we're going to talk about in a minute are like really some of the only prospects in this draft that are like plus blockers and had the production at their school, like receiving production to go along with it. So like I'm very intrigued by Jalen Conyers from Texas Tech as a late pick. CJ Dipre, probably pronounced that wrong too, but from Alabama, 6'4", 256. He does have plus blocking upside. He does have lower production and some drops, but I think, again, you're looking at a guy who can be an inline player for you, who can do some blocking. That's probably what you're hoping to get, at least somebody who's solid in that portion of their game. And if you can coach him up, get a little bit of upside as a tight end 3 in the receiving game. What definitely cements him on this list as a green tier guy is he was a Senior Bowl player, and the Packers did get an extensive look at him when they were down there. So
last up in our green tier, projected around round 7, or a UDFA. I've said his name more than a couple times just preparing for this, but Oronde Gadsden II out of Syracuse, 21 and a half years old, 6'4", 243 pounds, and has an RAS score of 8.22. This was the other guy that one of the other guys that Jordan was alluding to, but plus blocker, highly productive in 2024 and 2022, long strides and great catch radius. Some cons for him though, not the best route runner, built like a big wide receiver, and did add on weight at the combine.
Yeah. So we'll just again, our green tier guys, Mason Taylor from LSU, Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green State University, Benjamin Youssef from Georgia, Jalen Connors from Texas Tech, CJ Dipre from Alabama, and Oronde Gadsden II from Syracuse. So let's go ahead and let's jump into our quarterback conversation. And I think the Packers really will be interested in adding a quarterback to this room. Goody said in the past he wants to get back to drafting quarterbacks almost yearly. It's a position that you can never have enough potential guys at with arm talent and upside, because if Jordan Love and Malik Willis go down or we move on from Malik Willis, somebody's got to be out there and trying to, sling that rock for the Packers. So what do we know about the quarterback? It's another position where we don't know much, but here's the things that we can kind of glean from history that the Packers do like when they select a quarterback to play. Typically taller than 6'2". They like a higher RAS. They don't have to be like an 8 or a 9 athlete, but somebody that's like a 6 or 7 athlete. And the thing that's going to be tough in this part of the episode is that the quarterbacks don't really test. They don't run. They don't do agilities. Obviously people are looking at their arm talent, tape, history of what they put on in games at college, and that speaks to them more, whether they can run a great 40 time or have a strong vertical jump. They do like guys who have participated in the combine. Almost all of the guys they've added throughout the years have participated in the combine. And then specifically on players they're adding on day 3, they like experience. So players that have had more than 32 games starting. So what that means is like 2 full years as a starter about at the college level, and not somebody who's still just trying to figure it out. So with that, whether it's their draft position or, some other things, we have some red tier players. So Rob, why don't you give us our red tier rundown?
I don't think we need to talk about them, but Cam Ward and Shador Sanders are both probably going to go in the top 15. I'd be shocked if they didn't. So we can jump down to the first true red player projected around round 4. And that is Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon. Pretty old, a little over 24 years old. On the shorter side, 5'11", and his weight is 205 pounds. Has 64 games of experience, so there's a lot to like about that. We do not have an RAS or a 40 time on him. So a big pro on him, and you could see it from when he was playing last year on a really good Oregon squad, but fast release, and then some cons for him: below average arm, and then a little too slow for NFL rushers. But was a Senior Bowl invite, projected around round 4 for Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, with his height, struggled to probably see over the offensive line, and his arm being, below average at the next level. That's why he found himself on this tier. Max Brosmer from Minnesota, he's 6'1", so a little on the shorter side, and only had 1 year as a starter, which is why he's going to find himself on this group. Graham Mertz from Florida, you've seen Graham Mertz.
Just say it.
Con here is for all you Wisconsin football fans out there, if you've seen him play for Wisconsin, you know why we don't want Graham Mertz as a Green Bay Packer. You watch the games. And Taylor Elgazerma from Lurai, he's a Canadian player that did not participate in the combine, but might actually get drafted because there's some upside with him. He's 6'4", 216, has a lot of good starting experience, but I just think that he's a very unknown commodity, and the Packers usually don't dabble there when they're taking a quarterback. So couple players that the Packers could start to look at in our orange tier. Jackson Dart. Rob, you want to tell us about him?
Yeah, so Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss, projected around 2. Packers aren't going to be drafting any quarterback up high. So just putting that out there, and I'm sure you're all like, well, duh. But almost 22 years old, 21 and a half years old, 6'2", 223 pounds. There's a lot to like here for some teams for Jackson Dart. Good footwork allows him to throw or take off. Some cons for him: stares at the target downfield too much, throws off the back foot often, forces some plays downfield, and just average arm strength. But projected round 2 and was a Senior Bowl invite. So, I won't be shocked to see him, possibly sneak up early round 2, maybe even round 1.
Yeah, this is a really, really poor quarterback class if you haven't been paying attention. On a typical year, a Cam Ward or Shore Sanders might be, mid to late first round picks. I mean, I think PFF has Shedeur Sanders rated like the 46th best prospect, but because QB is the most important position, those players are going to go high. You know, Jackson Dart probably in another draft as a third round pick, going to go early second, late first. I've heard some traction about both the Browns and the Giants being interested in him at pick 33 or 34, probably taking, you know, like, and this would be really smart for the Browns, taking a transformative, you know, one in a generation player in Travis Hunter, and then actually coming back and saying, well, we'll develop Jackson Dart and see what we have, and, you know, revisit the quarterback situation next year if we don't find something there. But I mean, that's how that's going to play out. Similar for Jalen Milroe from Alabama, probably in another draft, a third or a fourth round prospect. Probably will go in the second round. I'd be really surprised if he falls to the third. But he's probably the most true dual threat quarterback in this draft. He has nice touch on deep passes. He does hold the ball loose and low and sometimes too long. And his accuracy dips on short passes. For some reason, he seems to struggle a little bit there. Reminds me a little bit of Jordan Love in that category, being, you know, fair. Sometimes struggles with those shorter throws and being accurate in that short space. So also a Senior Bowl prospect. If he fell to round 4, maybe the Packers might get a little frisky and be like, hey, you know, let's take a flyer on Jalen Milroe. He'd be very, very similar to the type of player we have in Malik Willis.
Well, yeah, great point.
Not going to be there on day 3, so Jalen Milroe's not going to be a Packer.
Yeah. Next up in our last one here for our orange tier, Curtis Rourke out of Indiana. Pretty old, almost 24 and a half years old, 6'4", 220 pounds. We do not have an RAS or 40 time. Does have 48 games of experience. Good touch passer, fundamentally sound. Some cons for him: lacks exit velocity, a limited ability to extend plays outside of the pocket, and struggles with back shoulder throws. But projected around round 5, round 6 possibility, but I'd be shocked again if they took him.
So three players in our gold tier, so would not be surprised if we draft any of these guys, especially since they're all day 3 prospects. But Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, he's tall enough, he's heavy enough, 6'3", 216. He goes through his progressions well. He can make big plays when he's scrambling and has plus mobility. He does have a little bit of accuracy and ball placement issues at time, but played 43 games. He had, you know, got into the championship game with Notre Dame this last year. I would not mind a round 4, round 5 flyer on somebody like Riley Leonard.
Next up, in our gold tier, Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, projected around round 4, 22 and a half years old, 6'3", 218 pounds. Again, we do not have an RAS or 40 time, but 37 games of experience. Bouncy, good base, likes to move with his feet, plus throwing mechanics, and a fiery competitor. Some cons: led the Power 4 in both big-time throws and turnover-worthy plays in 2024, which is not good. Too comfortable throwing off the back foot, and only has an average arm, so deep shots might struggle there for him.
Yep. And then last gold tier player, but somebody who's been mocked to the Packers a couple times or connected. You know, I think he's just really kind of a gold tier player more because he's got a little bit lesser, you know, I'm trying to come up with the right words here. He's got a little bit of a low RAS score, but, you know, I don't think that's going to kill him. But Seth Hennigan is 6'3", 215, has started 50 games in college. He has a compact throwing motion. He's very confident and displays a lot of moxie in his passing game and has pretty good exit velocity. Sorry, folks. Retreats too far when pressured. So some issues or some concerns for him is that when he drops back, he might take too many sacks. And when his fundamentals break down, he kind of lacks the speed to escape that pressure. So he's more of a true pocket passer. But I think with somebody that has, you know, average or above average arm talent late in the draft and somebody who was a Senior Bowl guy, they might like Seth Hennigan to come in and compete with Sean Clifford for QB.
So moving on to our green tier, and first up, Will Howard out of Ohio State, was a Senior Bowl invite, projected around round 4, 23 and a half years old, 6'4", 236 pounds with an 8.76 RAS score. has 50 games of experience. There is a lot to like about Will Howard. Shameless plug, if you haven't seen some of the John Gruden, Will Howard quarterback deep dive YouTube videos, make sure to go online and check those out. Gruden does a good job of going through and analyzing and critiquing and doing all the things with Will Howard, but above average arm, can make all the throws. Some cons, some of the throws short of the sticks too often and has an inconsistent release point. But, for somebody you're getting around round 4, round 3, round 4, depending, who has similar measurables to Josh Allen, there's a lot to like about Will Howard, and I don't think he's getting a lot more of the credit than he deserves as far as these other quote unquote round 1 or round 2 quarterbacks in this draft.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers from Texas is a guy that I like. He's pretty young. He's one of the younger guys on this list at 22 years old, 14, has 37 games of experience under his belt. Probably the biggest reason why he's a green tier guy for me is that he might have the best or, close to the best arm talent in this, QB prospect group. He's got an explosive throwing motion and he has great soft feel on downfield throws. So he can throw a laser in there, but he also has touch on things like wheel routes. Cons, he has some poor lower body habits and footwork issues. If we had Tom Clements still, I'd be very confident in him coming in and working on that. We'll see what Sean Mannion can do with Jordan Love and co in the future. And then sometimes he tries to, he's got a little Brett Favre in him. He tries to squeeze a few rocket balls in here or there. I don't know. Quinn Ewers sounds like a Green Bay Packer to me with a 5th round selection based on that profile.
Yep. So next up in our green tier, projection round 5 or round 6, one of my favorite ones, but one glaring red flag for him, but Tyler Shock. Yes, not show. It's Shock that we found out out of Louisville. He was a Senior Bowl invite, so the Packers did get a really good look at him. But 25 and a half years old. I mean, he's going to be 26, coming up here. So that's pretty bad. But again, if he's going to be a backup or even your third quarterback, there's a lot to like. Maybe in the 6th, 7th round, depending on where you get him. But 6'4", 219 pounds, a 9.69 RAS score. 40 time of 4.64 and 42 games of experience. What can we say about him? Fun personality, a good NFL arm strength, can make over the middle of the field throws pretty accurately. Some cons for him: limited mobility for the NFL, limited experience under center, and tries to throw from too many arm angles. Again, too, somebody Jordan and I have mocked more than a few times. The age is a massive outlier here too, but really love what Tyler Shock can bring for the Packers on day 3.
Yeah, and I just wonder if he's like a 6th or 7th round selection, right? If they feel like they can get one contract plus, and he's not going to get a lot of mileage as the backup, right? So, like, if he comes in at 26, he could easily be the Packers' backup for 6 or 8 years, and without the mileage of actually playing, that might work in this position. Last guy, Brady Cook from Mizzou, 23 years old, 6'2", 214, had a very productive 2023 that dipped off a little bit in 2024, but the Packers have proven that as long as you have at least one highly productive system or one highly productive year in a system, that they will be willing to take a chance on you. So I don't know if their offensive coordinator, their players, their key players changed at Mizzou, but he did have the production there in 23. Couple knocks on him: bad against pressure, and like I said, had a little bit more of a poor season in 2024, but a guy that you're going to get in the 6th or 7th round. You like his frame, you like his build, you like some of the things you've seen with his arm talent on tape. Would not be surprised at all if Brady Cook was a Green Bay Packer. So cool. Should give us the rundown on the green tier guys, and we'll get folks on the road.
Yeah, so just a quick recap, but green tier players on this list: Will Howard out of Ohio State, around round 4. Quinn Ewers out of Texas, around round 4 again. Tyler Shock out of Louisville, around round 5, round 6. And Brady Cook out of Mizzou, round 6, round 7, possible UDFA. So that will take us out of this one. And we appreciate it, Packers fans, for all of you coming back and taking a listen to us. Just know that we do have new content every Wednesday and Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Both Jordan and I are on the socials. I am at Sounds Gouda with 3 A's, and Jordan is at Olsen Jord. That should be below on the banner. Let us know what you think of these prospects. Maybe there's somebody we missed, or maybe there's some more context that you'd like to deliver into these deep dive series that we've gotten. So we'll make sure to get back to you. And as always, Packers fans, we hope that you have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night. Take care. Go Pack Go.
Been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay.